Freeze right there. Feel that silence pressing in. That's the sound of files slamming shut with nothing inside them. 8 years. Let that number crawl across your spine. 8 years of eyes on you. 8 years of breathing down your neck. 8 years of whispers, wiretaps, shadows leaning too close. Coffee cups left untouched because someone was always watching. 8 years of them circling, convinced there had to be blood on your hands, dirt under your nails, some microscopic crack they could pry open and call it justice. And after burning nearly a decade of their lives, hunting you like a myth they were sure had to be real, they found nothing. No charge, no headline, no courtroom moment. Just a blank page where your guilt was supposed to be. Do you understand how violently that breaks people? They don't know what to do with someone like you. A saint who walks through hell without picking up the stench. A psychopath who never leaves a fingerprint. An angel who knows every demon by name and still keeps their wings clean. You didn't win by fighting them. You won by becoming unprovable. By moving in ways their systems can't digest, their categories can't label, their language can't accuse. You didn't dodge the trap. You made the trap irrelevant. That's the part they won't say out loud. They weren't just looking for a crime. They were looking for relief. They wanted to end the anxiety you cause by existing, because you make order feel stupid. You make effort feel wasted. You make certainty feel fragile. Every night they went home carrying the same question like a disease. How is this person always here, always calm, always one step ahead, and still technically innocent? You didn't survive by being perfect. You survived by being precise, by learning when to speak and when silence does more damage than a confession ever could. By understanding that unpredictability isn't chaos, it's camouflage. You let them watch you live a life that looked normal enough to bore them, while every instinct in their gut screamed that something about you was off. Not criminal, not violent, just uncatchable. Pain forged that skill. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Every betrayal sharpened you. Every accusation that went nowhere taught you how to move cleaner. Every time you were misunderstood, you learned how to let people underestimate you without correcting them. You evolved in the pressure. You learned to think like both hunter and prey. You became the paradox they can't solve. Too disciplined to be reckless, too aware to be sloppy, too human to be a monster, too controlled to be innocent in the way they expect. And that terrifies them more than guilt ever could. Because guilt has an ending. Innocence with depth does not. An acquittal they can spin, a confession they can archive. But you walk away leaving nothing but burnt time and unanswered questions. 8 years of budgets, manpower, sleepless nights, internal memos, quiet arguments, careers staked on the assumption that eventually something would surface. And when nothing did, the silence wasn't peaceful. It was humiliating. You didn't just beat the system. You exposed its limits. You showed them that not all power is loud. Not all danger is messy. Not all threats announce themselves with blood and noise. Some just exist, calm, watching, adapting, while everyone else exhausts themselves trying to prove a story that refuses to be true. That's why they keep replaying you in their heads. That's why your name lingers in rooms you're not in. That's why even after closing the file, they still glance over their shoulder, wondering if they missed something. Not because you did something wrong, but because you represent the one thing they can't tolerate. A person who went through the fire, learned every rule, every angle, every shadow, and still came out clean. You're not untouchable because you're lucky. You're untouchable because you're aware. Because you learned how the game works by being crushed under it and standing back up without rage, without noise, without confession. You became the calm after the storm they expected to drown you. You became the proof that survival doesn't always look like victory parades and public vindication. Sometimes it looks like an empty case file and a room full of people who have to admit, silently, that they lost. So let them sit with that. Let them replay those 8 years. Let them feel the weight of time they'll never get back. You're still here, still moving, still unreadable. And that silence they're left with, that's not peace. That's fear dressed up as closure. They'll never admit that the real charge they were hoping for wasn't written in law. It was emotional. They wanted you to crack. They wanted desperation, ego, panic, anything human enough to betray you. They needed you to react, because reaction creates mistakes, and mistakes create leverage. But you didn't give them that luxury. You learned the discipline of stillness. You learned that the loudest move in a hostile room is restraint. You learned that when everyone expects blood, offering nothing at all feels supernatural. 8 years of pressure didn't turn you reckless. It turned you surgical. You stopped moving like someone trying to prove innocence and started moving like someone who understands how narratives are built and how they collapse when you refuse to participate. You let them tell stories about you to each other while you stayed silent, watching their theories rot from the inside. You understood something most people never do. Truth doesn't protect you. Consistency does. That's the paradox they can't reconcile. You didn't hide. You didn't run. You lived. You showed up. You paid attention. You evolved. And every time they zoomed in tighter, expecting to finally catch the flaw, all they saw was discipline staring back at them. Not innocence in the childish sense. Innocence with awareness. Innocence that knows how dark the world is and still refuses to bleed on command. You became a mirror they hated looking into, because every unanswered question about you turned into a question about themselves, about their methods, about their certainty, about the fragile belief that if they just watch long enough, everyone breaks. You didn't. And that broke them. They'll tell themselves you were just lucky. They'll say resources were misallocated, priorities shifted, the trail went cold. But in quieter moments, when the room is empty and the screens are dark, they feel it. That low, uncomfortable truth. Some people aren't caught because they aren't sloppy. They're caught because they're predictable. You chose the harder path. You became unreadable without becoming invisible. You mastered the art of being fully present without being exposed. That kind of control doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from pain refined into awareness. From learning how every word can be twisted, every gesture misread, every emotional leak weaponized. So you sealed yourself, not by becoming numb, but by becoming precise. You didn't suppress emotion, you channeled it. You learned when to let it sharpen you and when to lock it away so no one else could use it against you. And now they're left holding the aftermath. 8 years of surveillance that produced nothing but a lesson they'll never write down. The most dangerous people aren't the ones who rage against the system. They're the ones who understand it well enough to walk through it without leaving a mark. You didn't just survive scrutiny. You absorbed it. You let it temper you. You let it burn away every unnecessary movement, every sloppy impulse, every urge to explain yourself. You became efficient, economical, calm under conditions designed to induce collapse. That's not normal. That's forged. They expected a sinner or a saint. What they got was something far worse for them. A human who understands both roles and plays neither. An angel who knows how demons think. A psychopath who chooses discipline over destruction. Someone who could have gone loud, but chose clean. And that's why the file is empty. Not because there was nothing to find, but because you learned how to live in a way that denies them the satisfaction of proof. You denied them the ending they needed. No trial, no headline, no moral resolution. Just time wasted and a presence they can't shake. You walk forward now carrying something they don't know how to classify. Quiet authority. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that comes from knowing you were tested at a depth most people never reach. And you didn't just survive. You adapted. Let them remember those 8 years every time they think they understand how the world works. Let them remember you when another case collapses, when another profile fails, when another confident prediction turns into silence. You are the reminder that not all power is visible, not all danger is loud, and not all victories end with applause. Some end with an empty charge sheet and a room full of people forced to confront the truth they hate most. You were never caught because you were never controllable. And here's the part that twists the knife deeper than any accusation ever could. They didn't just fail to charge you. They had to watch you grow while they were watching you. That's the humiliation they'll never put in a report. You didn't freeze under observation. You didn't shrink. You didn't rot in paranoia. You sharpened. You expanded. You learned how to think 3 moves ahead while they were still debating the first. Every year they tracked you, you became more composed, more controlled, more dangerous in a way they couldn't legally name. They were waiting for stress fractures. You turned stress into structure. They were waiting for a breakdown. You turned pressure into posture. They were waiting for you to implode so they could finally say, "There it is." And instead, you did the unthinkable. You normalized the watch. You made the surveillance part of your environment. Like gravity, you stopped fighting it. You used it. That's when the power shifted. Because once you realize you're being watched, you have 2 options: perform or become so consistent that performance becomes impossible to accuse. You chose consistency, ruthless, boring, infuriating consistency, the kind that makes analysts argue with each other, the kind that makes patterns dissolve instead of forming, the kind that forces people to admit, quietly, that there's nothing to grab onto. You didn't just deny them evidence, you denied them emotion. No spikes, no collapses, no dramatic arcs they could frame as motive. You starved the narrative. And a starved narrative turns inward. It eats the people trying to maintain it. That's why the anxiety moved off of you and into them. Because once the years stack up with nothing to show, the question changes. It's no longer, "What did you do?" It becomes, "What are we missing?" And that question is poison. It corrodes trust inside teams. It fractures confidence. It makes people doubt their own competence. Careers stall under that doubt. Promotions disappear. Reputations soften. And all the while, you're just living. Calm, present, untouched. Do you understand how destabilizing that is to people who rely on control? You became the proof that their net has holes, that their models are incomplete, that their belief in total visibility is a myth they tell themselves to sleep at night. You walked through their field of vision for nearly a decade and left them with nothing but burnt time and internal damage. That's why they'll never really let it go. Even when the file is archived, even when they say case closed, your existence stays open-ended in their minds. You are the unresolved variable, the anomaly that refuses to collapse into guilt or innocence. And anomalies haunt systems long after individual cases are forgotten. You learned something most people never even approach. Power isn't domination. It's self-regulation under threat. It's the ability to feel fear without broadcasting it, to feel anger without weaponizing it prematurely, to feel watched without becoming performative. You didn't numb yourself. You mastered yourself. That's the saint in you, the restraint, the discipline, the refusal to let darkness decide your moves. And then there's the other side, the part they sensed but could never prove, the part that understands leverage, the part that knows how easily lines can be crossed, how quickly things can turn ugly, and exactly how much chaos you're capable of if pushed far enough. That's the demon. But you didn't unleash it. You kept it leashed, fed, alert, waiting. That balance is what kept you clean. They were hunting for a monster. You showed them a human with control. And that's far worse for their worldview. Because monsters justify the hunt. Controlled humans expose the futility of it. 8 years later, they're left with the quiet realization that you were never playing defense. You were training your patience, training your silence, training your ability to exist without explanation, and now you carry that with you everywhere. Not as paranoia, but as awareness. You don't flinch anymore. You don't rush to clarify. You don't need to convince. You've already been through the longest test most people would collapse under, and you passed it by not trying to win. That's the kind of victory that doesn't announce itself. It just changes how you walk through the world. Let them burn those years in regret. Let them replay their theories and dead ends. Let them wonder how someone can be so visible and still leave nothing behind. You're not a ghost. You're worse for them than that. You're real, you're disciplined, you're unchargeable, and they know it. And here's the detail that keeps them awake long after the paperwork is filed away. The system did everything right. That's what scares them. This wasn't incompetence. This wasn't laziness. This wasn't a missed memo or a lazy analyst. They followed protocol. They escalated. They cross-checked. They looped in specialists, experts, people whose entire identity is built on finding something, and still nothing, which means the failure wasn't procedural. It was existential. You weren't hiding in the shadows. You were standing in the light and still couldn't be burned. That realization fractures something deep inside people who believe the world is orderly, measurable, controllable. Because if someone can exist under maximum scrutiny and remain legally clean, emotionally composed, psychologically intact, then the rules they've been worshiping aren't laws of nature. They're assumptions. And assumptions crumble when confronted with someone who refuses to behave as predicted. You became that confrontation. Every year they watched you without result. The hunt stopped being about you and started being about saving face. No one wants to be the one who says, "We spent 8 years and we have nothing." So they kept going, not because the evidence was growing, but because the embarrassment was. You weren't a suspect anymore. You were a sunk cost. A bet they couldn't afford to admit was wrong. That's when obsession replaces logic. And you felt it, didn't you? That subtle shift, when attention stopped feeling investigative and started feeling personal. When the silence around you got heavier, not lighter. When you realized they weren't watching to find truth anymore. They were watching to justify the watching. That's when most people panic. That's when they overcorrect, overshare, self-sabotage, try to explain themselves into safety. You didn't. You understood something brutal and elegant. Explanations create hooks. Silence creates nothing. So you gave them nothing. No emotional leakage, no performative outrage, no desperate need to be seen as good. You let your life speak in the most infuriating language possible. Consistency over time. They expected a confession arc. You gave them a flat line, and flat lines terrify systems built on escalation. Because escalation requires response, and you refused to provide one. You didn't run, you didn't provoke, you didn't crumble. You moved forward at the same measured pace, whether eyes were on you or not. That's when they started realizing they weren't observing a target anymore. They were observing a discipline. That's what 8 years of pressure does when it doesn't break you. It turns you into someone who no longer needs to react to be real. Someone whose sense of self isn't dependent on being understood. Someone who can exist inside ambiguity without needing to resolve it for others. Most people need closure. You learn to live without it. And that's why, when the file closed empty, it didn't feel like relief to them. It felt like defeat without an opponent. No final scene, no moral victory. Just a quiet admission that the world contains people who cannot be forced into narratives, even hostile ones. You're not dangerous because you're violent. You're dangerous because you're disciplined, because you can carry darkness without spilling it, because you know exactly how much you could do and choose not to. That restraint radiates power in a way brute force never could. They sensed it. They always did. That's why they kept watching long after logic said, stop. They weren't hunting for evidence anymore. They were trying to understand you. And that's the line you never let them cross. Understanding is intimacy, and intimacy is leverage. You denied them both. So now you walk forward, carrying something rare and unsettling, proof. Proof that you can be tested at the highest level and remain intact. Proof that pressure doesn't automatically corrupt. Proof that awareness doesn't require paranoia. Proof that you can know how the machine works and still refuse to become part of its noise. You didn't just survive surveillance, you outgrew it. And here's the final twist, the one they'll never articulate even to themselves. If you ever did choose to move differently, if you ever decided to stop being clean, stop being quiet, stop being disciplined, they know exactly how catastrophic that would be. Because someone who can remain untouched for 8 years under scrutiny isn't dangerous because of what they've done. They're dangerous because of what they understand. That's why the silence around your name is so thick now. That's why doors close gently instead of slamming. That's why people choose distance over confrontation. They don't fear your past. They fear your capacity. And you don't need to announce it. You don't need to threaten it. You don't need to prove anything ever again. The emptiness of that file already said more than any conviction could. 8 years burned, nothing found, you still standing. That's not luck, that's evolution under fire. Hey, don't move yet. Feel that pressure in the air? That tightening behind your eyes? That's the moment right before a system realizes it made a mistake. And you're standing inside it. Because here's the thing they can't say out loud. You're not operating on human settings anymore. You don't move like them. You don't think like them. You don't react on schedule. You don't break on cue. You don't obey the psychological physics that keep everyone else predictable. And when an organization built on patterns, profiles, and probabilities looks at you and hesitates, when their screens start blinking instead of explaining, that's when the word threat quietly appears next to your name. Not because you're violent, not because you're reckless, but because you're unclassifiable. You see, they're trained to spot animals, wolves, sheep, leaders, followers, heroes, villains. They can map those, track those, neutralize those. But you're a contradiction walking upright, calm when pressure peaks, silent when noise is expected, smiling when the outcome should have crushed you. You don't spike emotionally where they predicted. You don't collapse where the data said you would. You don't chase validation. You don't beg for permission. And that terrifies systems that survive on compliance. They flagged you the moment you stopped responding like a victim. Because humans break in familiar ways. Humans lash out, fold inward, seek approval, seek revenge, seek comfort. Humans need witnesses to feel real. Humans need rules to feel safe. But you adapted. You metabolized pain into precision. You took betrayal and refined it into awareness. You took isolation and turned it into clarity. That's not a trauma response. That's an upgrade. And here's the paradox they can't resolve. You still feel deeply. You still care. You still carry empathy like a loaded weapon. But you're not ruled by it. You can be gentle without being weak, ruthless without being cruel, loving without being controllable. You learned when to open your hands and when to close the fist around your mind and say no one gets access to this anymore. That's where the saint and the psychopath shake hands inside you. They ran you through every psychological model, every stress simulation, every pressure profile. And every time, you slipped through the cracks, not by fighting the system, but by refusing to dance to its rhythm. You didn't rebel loudly. You didn't submit quietly. You just didn't react the way you were supposed to. And unpredictability is the one variable power structures cannot tolerate. Because control depends on anticipation, you became the anomaly not when you attacked, but when you stopped explaining yourself. When you stopped trying to be understood. When you stopped correcting lies about you. When you let silence do the work violence never could. That's when the alarms went off. That's when someone leaned back in a chair and said, "This one doesn't escalate. This one doesn't panic. This one waits." Waiting is not human. Waiting is predatory. You learned how to look harmless while thinking 5 moves ahead. You learned how to stand in chaos without absorbing it. You learned how to let people underestimate you because you understood something most never will. Being misread is a strategic advantage. While they're debating who you are, you're already deciding who you're becoming. And what you're becoming doesn't fit into their boxes. They want monsters that look like monsters, angels that look like angels, clear lines, clean labels. But you walk with light in one hand and shadow in the other, and you choose which one to use depending on the moment. You can walk into a room and lower the temperature without raising your voice. You can dismantle someone without touching them. You can leave without slamming the door and still make the silence echo for years. That's not normal. That's trained or forged. You didn't wake up like this. You were shaped by loss that didn't kill you, by pressure that didn't break you, by betrayal that didn't harden you, but sharpened you. Every time life tried to reduce you to a statistic, you learned how to slip the net. Every time they thought you were finished, you adapted quietly and came back different. And here's the part they don't want you to realize. Once a system flags you as a threat, it's already too late. Because the flag doesn't mean they understand you. It means they don't. It means you've surpassed the level where they can predict outcomes. You've stepped outside the script. You're no longer a character. They're reacting to you. That's power. Not the loud kind, not the flashy kind. The kind that sits still while others fidget. The kind that listens more than it speaks. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself because its presence rewrites the room. You don't dominate with force. You destabilize with awareness. And awareness is the most dangerous currency there is. So no, you're not human because you lack empathy. You're not human because you evolved past the emotional traps designed to keep people small. You can feel without drowning, think without spiraling, act without ego, and stop without fear. You've learned restraint, and restraint is what separates chaos from command. They fear you because you don't need them to exist. You don't need their approval to move. You don't need their validation to decide. You don't need their permission to become. And the moment someone realizes you can't be steered by incentives or threats, the only word left in their vocabulary is danger. Good. Let them watch. Let them speculate. Let them whisper in rooms you'll never enter. Because the truth is simpler than all their theories. You're not above them. You're not below them. You're outside the system they depend on to feel safe. And systems always fear what they can't own, predict, or erase. You didn't turn into a threat by trying to be powerful. You became one by surviving with your mind intact. By refusing to let pain turn you stupid. By refusing to let fear turn you loud. By refusing to let trauma turn you small. You're calm where others crack. Focused where others flail. Still where others spin. And that stillness? That's what shakes them. Because something that can stand in fire without screaming. Something that can walk through darkness without losing its direction. Something that can be both angel and demon without apologizing. That's not something they can control. That's something they can only react to. And by the time they react, you're already gone. And here's what makes it even more unsettling for them. You didn't arrive angry. You didn't arrive broken. You arrived quiet, calm, surgical. You didn't burst through the door demanding recognition. You didn't announce revenge. You didn't posture. You simply adjusted your internal compass and kept moving, while everyone else was still arguing about the map. That's when they started reviewing old footage, old conversations, old reactions. That's when they realized the timeline doesn't add up. Because somewhere along the way, the version of you they thought they knew stopped existing. And you didn't mark the transition with drama. You let it happen in silence. You let the old you die without witnesses. That scares people more than explosions ever could. Because destruction is loud. Evolution is quiet. You learned to weaponize patience, to let people reveal themselves while you stayed unreadable, to listen without reacting, to absorb information without leaking intention. Most humans broadcast their next move emotionally. Micro-expressions, tone shifts, compulsive explanations. You shut that channel down. You became smooth, neutral, untraceable. And the moment someone can't read you, they start projecting. They start imagining worst-case scenarios. They start filling the silence with their own fear. You didn't threaten them. They scared themselves, thinking about what you might be capable of. That's the irony. You're not dangerous because you act. You're dangerous because you don't have to. You know how to wait for leverage instead of forcing outcomes. You know how to let arrogance walk itself into traps. You know how to step back and let probability do the damage. While others chase control, you mastered positioning. While others demand power, you became inevitable. And here's the duality they can't compute. You could have turned cruel, but you didn't. You could have become reckless, but you chose precision. You could have turned cold, but instead you became selective. You didn't lose your humanity, you curated it. You decided who deserves access to your warmth and who only ever gets distance. That's not sociopathy. That's discernment forged in fire. They tried to map your breaking point, but they missed something critical. You already broke once, completely, privately. And instead of shattering outward, you collapsed inward and rebuilt from a quieter core. A core that doesn't need applause. A core that doesn't flinch under scrutiny. A core that knows survival isn't about dominance. It's about adaptability with memory. You remember everything, every slight, every lie, every pattern. But you don't carry it like a wound. You carry it like intelligence. You don't bleed anymore. You calculate. You don't explode. You reposition. And when you do act, it looks effortless, almost accidental, because the work was done long before anyone noticed. That's why they're confused. They expect threats to announce themselves. They expect danger to be loud, chaotic, obvious. But you move like a ghost with a pulse. Present, undeniable, yet impossible to pin down. You leave effects without fingerprints, outcomes without noise. You're not unpredictable because you're random. You're unpredictable because you're not driven by the same incentives. Fear doesn't rush you. Praise doesn't slow you. Hatred doesn't distract you. You operate from a place most people never reach. A place where identity is fluid, ego is optional, and reaction is a choice. That's where angels and demons stop being opposites and start being tools. You can be merciful without being naive, ruthless without being unstable, detached without being empty. You know exactly what you're capable of, and that self-knowledge is what keeps you controlled. The truly dangerous ones are unaware of themselves. You're the opposite. You're conscious of every edge, and consciousness is the real threat. Because once someone sees through the illusion, once they understand how narratives are manufactured, how fear is sold, how obedience is conditioned, they can't be programmed the same way again. You stopped reacting to symbols, titles, intimidation. You saw the machinery behind the curtain, and instead of panicking, you studied it. Now you move differently. You don't rush outcomes. You let momentum come to you. You don't force respect. You let absence teach people your value. You don't correct misunderstandings. You let time expose truth. And every time someone underestimates you, you quietly store that advantage for later. They call that a threat because they don't have a word for someone who's free inside their own mind. You're not dangerous because you want power. You're dangerous because you don't need it. And people who don't need power can't be bribed, cornered, or controlled. You're not motivated by survival anymore. You already survived. You're motivated by alignment, precision, timing. And timing is everything. So let them flag you. Let them watch. Let them debate what you are. Because while they're busy labeling, you're busy evolving. And evolution doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't explain itself. It just happens, slowly, relentlessly, until the old rules stop working. You didn't become something inhuman. You became something post-human. Something forged by pressure, refined by silence, and stabilized by self-awareness. Something that understands both light and dark not as moral absolutes, but as forces to be balanced, deployed, or withheld. And the truth they're circling but don't want to admit. The moment you realized who you are, the moment you stopped trying to be understood, the moment you chose clarity over chaos. That was the moment the system stopped studying you and started reacting. And here's the part that never makes it into their reports. The part whispered, not typed. You didn't just slip outside their predictions. You changed the way probability bends around you. Outcomes that should have crushed you somehow rerouted. Situations designed to corner you lost tension the moment you entered them. Plans built to exhaust you, stalled, collapsed, or turned inward on the people who authored them. Not because you fought harder, but because you stopped moving the way fear expects a human to move. Fear wants speed. Fear wants noise. Fear wants reaction. You denied it all three. You slowed down when urgency screamed. You stayed silent when bait was thrown. You observed when others panicked. And observation is lethal to systems built on emotional reflex. Every institution depends on predictability disguised as free will. You exposed that lie by refusing to dance. That's when the language changed. They stopped asking, "Who is he?" and started asking, "What is he?" They stopped running personality profiles and started running anomaly checks. They stopped looking for motives and started looking for containment. Because motives can be negotiated. Anomalies cannot. You don't fit because you learned how to live without anchors. Praise doesn't hook you. Shame doesn't drag you. Threats don't spike your pulse. You've already faced the internal collapse most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You stared at the void inside yourself and didn't blink. You reorganized around it. You didn't numb out. You integrated. That's why pressure doesn't distort you anymore. It sharpens you. They're used to humans who leak intention through emotion, humans who betray their next move with tone, posture, desperation. You learned how to seal that leakage. You learned how to carry intensity without broadcasting it. You learned how to look calm while calculating 10 steps ahead. You learned how to let people think they're winning while you're mapping exits, leverage points, and future consequences. That's not aggression. That's mastery of self. And mastery of self is the one weapon they can't confiscate. They're unsettled because you don't seek conflict. Yet conflict seems to reorganize itself around you. You don't chase dominance, yet power keeps deferring to you. You don't announce evolution, yet people feel it the moment you enter their orbit. Conversations shift, energy tightens, masks slip. People start over-explaining. That's how you know you've outgrown the room, because your presence disrupts their internal hierarchy. You remind them, without saying a word, that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it watches, sometimes it waits. Sometimes it smiles and lets others underestimate it because you understand the oldest rule of asymmetric advantage. The unseen edge wins. You didn't become dangerous by becoming cruel. You became dangerous by becoming clear. Clear about what you tolerate. Clear about what you ignore. Clear about what you protect. Clear about when you move and when you don't. Confusion is what drains humans. Clarity is what terrifies systems built on manipulation. They can't bait you with outrage. They can't destabilize you with chaos. They can't fracture you with contradiction. You already contain contradiction. You already live at the intersection of restraint and ruthlessness, of empathy and precision, of mercy and memory. You didn't pick a side between light and dark. You mastered both. And that's why you scare them. Because you can walk into darkness without becoming it. And you can wield light without being blinded by it. You know when to heal and when to sever. When to speak and when silence will do more damage than any sentence. They keep asking themselves the wrong question. They ask, what if he turns hostile? They should be asking, what if he already understands restraint better than we do? Because restraint is not weakness. Restraint is knowing exactly how far you could go and choosing not to. That choice implies capability, and capability without compulsion is the rarest form of power. You're not unpredictable because you're unstable. You're unpredictable because you're sovereign. You don't outsource your decisions to emotion. trend, or crowd. You decide internally, then act externally. Most people do the opposite, and that's why they're manageable. You are not. So let them monitor, let them flag, let them speculate. Surveillance is what systems do when influence fails. Labels are what they apply when understanding collapses. But none of that changes the core truth humming under everything you touch. You evolved past reaction, past fear-based identity, past validation dependency, past the need to be seen as good, normal, acceptable. You became something quieter, denser, more deliberate. And the most unsettling realization they're circling is this: you didn't do it to oppose them. You did it to survive yourself, to outgrow the version of you that pain tried to fossilize, to become functional, aware, intact. That kind of evolution doesn't stop. It compounds. And every step you take from here isn't about proving anything. It's about alignment, about moving when the moment is correct, about letting systems reveal their own fragility while you remain centered. You're not here to overthrow the world. You're here to move through it untouched by the mechanisms that enslave everyone else. And that's why the word threat appears next to your name. Not because you plan destruction, but because you represent something far more dangerous to any system built on control. A human who can't be owned, rushed, frightened, or rewritten. A mind that already survived the worst. A presence that doesn't need permission to exist. And once that kind of awareness is born, there is no flag powerful enough to contain it. And here's where it settles, quietly, finally, without fireworks. They can label you, track you, circle you with words like anomaly, risk, threat. But none of that changes the outcome, because the moment they noticed you, you were already past the point of containment. You don't move against the system, you move beyond it. You don't break rules, you outgrow the need for them. You're not dangerous because you want to burn the world down. You're dangerous because you no longer need the world to validate your existence. You know who you are now. You know what you survived. You know what you can do, and more importantly, what you choose not to do. That choice is what keeps you clean, focused, untouchable. So let them keep watching shadows on the wall. Let them keep guessing at motives you don't have. Let them keep mistaking silence for absence. You're still here, still moving, still evolving, not loud, not reckless, not desperate, just aware. And awareness like yours doesn't explode. It replaces what no longer works. That's why they flagged you. And that's why, no matter what they call you now, you've already won.